Good morning. Thanks for joining us. John, Kelly, Caitlin, really appreciate the opportunity today to talk a little bit about Patriot Select. Congratulations on the launch of your new company. Look forward today to kind of walking through with you all the opportunities that exist here in Florida, the way that you see it, and some of your plan to take advantage of those opportunities. Florida is a very unique place. And one thing that I've found in my time here at FAI is that carriers that are successful are those that have built leadership teams and executive teams with deep roots and experience in Florida. And you all have clearly done that. John, we've known each other for, almost 20 years, probably right at 20 years, my entire time here at FAI. I think we got to know each other in the early to mid 2000s when you were at Florida Farm Bureau, and have made a number of stops along the way since then with other domestic carriers, some time with Citizens, doing some independent actuarial work. And so clearly you have the experience, and look forward to hearing a little bit more about your background, and then give you the opportunity to introduce your other team members with Patriot here with us today. After those introductions, we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts about your company, the opportunities that exist, and other things that our members like to know and hear as new carriers are launched. So thanks again for being with us today. Congratulations on the launch of your new carrier. So John, I'll turn it over to you and give us a little bit more about your background, and go ahead and introduce your team members.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Dave. It's good to be here with FAIA, and Kyle, you're right. I remember in the Farm Bureau days learning about the market. It's certainly a unique mix of meteorology and engineering and economics and actuarial science and politics and everything else that keeps our property insurance market humming here in Florida. And it's hummed really well during some periods, and the weather has helped out during some periods, and then in other periods it's been more challenging. And I often like to say we use the Frank Sinatra rule in Florida. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere in the property insurance industry. So we are definitely glad to launch and glad to be partnering with FAIA and its strong community of independent agents around the state. I'm John Rollins. I've been in this business for about 34 years. I remember the first time I walked into my first job, there was one of those old paper magazines on the desk, and it said, "Is the independent agent dead?" And that was 1990. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but we're 34 years into this, and the independent agent community is stronger than ever, and it will need to be, because in places like Florida that are subject to severe storms, you just have to know, you have to get insurance from somebody you can trust. You're not going to want to know every in and out of that policy on your own. You need a jungle guide. So, we're happy to be working with you guys. As I said, I've been at it about 34 years. About 26 of it has been in the Florida property industry. And you mentioned that we met way back when just things were starting to heat up after Hurricane Andrew, and when we were making some changes to the Florida building code back in 2002. And we've been working together ever since in one capacity or another. So, I'm an actuary by trade. So I came up in the first 10 years of my career, kind of learning the math of the industry and learning the risk management side, expanded out to products and underwriting and other areas within Florida property insurance organizations, and spent some time, as you noted, Kyle, in the public and private sectors. So in the private sector, worked at Farm Bureau, worked at a catastrophe modeling technology firm, worked at some other consulting firms, worked in other insurance carriers, but also spent some time at Citizens Property Insurance. And that was really invaluable experience, because you were representing the whole of the insurance ecosystem to the public. And you were on the front line, standing in front of the public when things went wrong, whether it was the town halls for condominium residents, or manning an insurance village, or surveying neighborhoods, after a hurricane. You were sort of the face of the Florida insurance ecosystem as a whole, and that kind of burns itself into your soul a little bit if you stay in this market. So I did enjoy my time there. Worked with some great people there, including one who I'll introduce here in just a second. and also got to serve on the board, as a sort of a quasi-political appointee. So you were sort of the liaison between the legislature and the executive branch government of Florida and the folks who were charged with running Citizens and making sure that insurance was available and affordable and reliable in both the private and the public sector. So I've enjoyed all that experience. I'm glad to be here and glad to be at the operating helm of Patriot Select. But let's face it, luck is better than skill, and I've been lucky to recruit an incredible management team. We have a couple of members of that team here today. First of all, Kelly Booten. Kelly, literally anybody who knows Citizens, as FAIA members often do, knows that Kelly was the person that made the trains run on time at Citizens for almost a 20-year period. So she has an incredible amount of experience looking at very complex projects and bringing them home on time and under budget. And her experience at Citizens spanned a bunch of different areas that she can talk about. We also have Caitlin DeFrancesco here. Caitlin has multi-generational insurance DNA here in Florida. Caitlin has been with large independent agencies and large agency managers. She's also been with Florida insurance carriers and has a lot of experience being the public-facing side of the insurance enterprise to the independent agent community. So we're very, very happy to have her as well. So Kelly, why don't you give a quick background on yourself, and Caitlin, you could do the same.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having us. Yeah, I am Chief Operating Officer at Patriot Select, and I started with the company in January of 24 and have been, getting us ready to launch, and we're ready. Everything's built out. All of the infrastructure is in place, and we're up and running and appointing agents as we speak. So it's been a smooth ride to get here, I'd say, a little bit. But before that, I was at Citizens, and when I left, I was the chief operating officer. I wore many hats over the 20 plus years I was there, saw everything, I feel like, for the most part, with market changes in the market, the contracting and expanding, legislative change, catastrophe response. So that background toughened me up and has, helped with, everything that we've done so far and will be doing in the future. So thank you.
I'm Caitlin DeFrancesco. I came over as the Director of Sales and Marketing 10 or 11 months ago, working closely with Kelly, trying to get everything ready operationally. I will be, the one working with our independent agents, out appointing, trying to get those LSAs executed in time for the June Depop, and really looking forward to it. We're going to launch this thing, and have some fun.
Thanks, y'all. So obviously, we want to get into some nuts and bolts and questions specific to the company, but I do think it's important to sort of lay a foundation of sort of where we've been and where we are. And John, I don't know that there are too many people better equipped to give our members sort of some insight as to, what's going on in the market. You've seen it all from, as you mentioned, different vantage points. And, the Florida legislature made some really meaningful changes back in 2022 and 2023 that many observers, including myself, felt like, well, one, I'm not sure that I believed it would ever really happen, doing away with the assignment of benefits and one-way attorney fees in Florida. But it did, through the incredible leadership of our executive branch and legislative leaders. But when it happened, I think, many of us believe that this would be the sentinel moment in the history of Florida property insurance, and we would see a turnaround, create more stability and predictability for carriers and loss costs, claims, litigation, all of those sorts of things. And, we've written a lot about it. We've talked a lot about it, felt like there was going to be opportunities for new entrants in the marketplace. Can you share with us a little bit about just sort of what you've seen from a financial standpoint, results of carriers since those reforms, and what that means for new entrants and the opportunities that it presents?
Simply put, it's been a total sea change in our ability to.
John, your mic is low again.
it's been a sea change in our ability to re-strengthen the Florida insurance market. Simply put, Kyle, the Florida legislature did show tremendous courage back in really going as far back as 2019 when the first set of reforms to assignment of benefits occurred. And then there was a succession of bills in 2019, 2021, 22, and culminating in the regular session of 23, which all really put us in position to look forward in an environment where hurricanes, for whether it's due to climate change or whether it's due to bad luck or some combination, are hitting Florida more frequently and are impacting a larger population that wants to live in paradise. And sometimes that means living near the water in places which are, fundamentally more dangerous. And in an environment like that, we simply could not afford to have an inefficient, litigation heavy property insurance system, which is plagued with everything from outright fraud to simple inflation of loss amounts throughout that system. We might have had that luxury in the old days when we had 10 years of no hurricanes in a row, and we had a great population of our great state. But let's face it, there weren't as many people here, and they weren't wanting to live as close to the water in as great a numbers. Maybe we could afford that kind of inefficiency back then. We can't now. We simply can't because people are moving to very picturesque but dangerous areas around our state. They're moving here in great numbers. They're expecting affordable property insurance because part of the American dream that they're buying is a reasonable cost of living in a great state like Florida. And we can't provide all that to them, with the environment we had before those reforms. It was unsustainable. So the legislature did the courageous thing in a series of sessions and finally put us really, we didn't do anything out of the mainstream. We simply sort of restored Florida to a similar litigation environment for property insurance claims that exists in the other 49 states. We just sort of lost the luxury of being the outlier state with 8 or 9% of the claims and 80% of the litigation. So I'm really glad the legislature did that. And looking forward, it did have a huge impact on our ability to start Patriot Select, to attract investor capital, to sharpen our pencils and create a business plan that actually works going forward and works whether or not we have the expected or even a greater than expected number of hurricanes hitting Florida in the next few years. What made those business plans work and what got people to sort of vote with their dollars and put the capital behind Patriot Select is the forward-looking environment for the claims in the state. I don't want to get too deep into the numbers, though I like to do that. But rates of litigation have fallen, and the larger insurers have kind of confirmed this in their public earnings calls and writings and other places. The rates of litigation have fallen by 50 to 70%. The overall frequency of claims, whether litigated or not, has fallen in some cases by 40 or 50%. And you have to scratch your head and wonder, is lightning less frequent? Are fires less frequent? Are storms less frequent that can tear shingles off the roof? Not really. But what is less frequent is the solicitation of claims to sort of buy tickets to the lottery of claims litigation that was in place before those reforms. So the legislature did the courageous thing. And what really matters is our consumers benefiting. Patriot Select intends for consumers to benefit, and our rates and our coverage will be built around what's prevailing in the marketplace now. And when you look at what's prevailing now, rates are stabilizing. The rest of the country is experiencing dramatic hikes in homeowners insurance costs right now because of replacement costs, inflation of materials and labor, and other reasons. And here Florida is with roughly stable rates on average, and many carriers actually starting to reduce rates. So now you have 49 other states that have, sort of a budgetary shock for a lot of their homeowners, and Florida doesn't. And that's because Florida took the steps that it did. And what that stability allows you to do is plan for 5, 7, 10 years or more. You have to do that when you run an insurance company. Everything in insurance is a multi-year horizon because you sell the policies and the claims come in over time, and you have to be looking well down the field in order to run an insurance company successfully. And what that stability in the claims environment does is allow you to do that. So yeah, I would say overall, the legislature did a great thing, and it has really been part of what set in motion the conditions and the stability of those conditions that's allowed Patriot Select to launch.
I think that's a perfect overview, John. I appreciate that. Obviously, one of the things that, FAI does, and, I think we do well is, our regulatory and legislative advocacy, working with our company partners to try to affect good public policy. And again, those reforms, I believe we will look back, 10 years from now and say that was the moment that the legislature did, as you put it, a courageous thing, and frankly changed the trajectory of Florida's property insurance market and put us on footing to have a long-term viable, sustainable market that benefits policyholders. I appreciate so much that in your sort of explanation there, what's really most important, and our members talk about it all the time, is the policyholder, the consumer, getting what they thought that they were paying for and finding value in the protection that they were buying. So that's a great overview. At this point, why don't we sort of get into some of the nuts and bolts of your company leadership plans and so forth. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Newell to walk through some of those questions that we have for you all on where we go from here.
Thanks, Kyle. Congratulations again. Kyle opened it up. It's a great day for Patriot Select, and I'm certainly glad we're having this conversation today. A lot of information is going to be flowing, and FAI always gets immediate questions from our members. We've already gotten several today, and so we'll continue to respond to those. But John, one of the things as we go through these questions, these are questions that have come to us over time, so we want to be able to provide the information to our members. So you've already talked about your long-standing history here in Florida, and so that is one piece that we can check off, right? The second thing that a lot of our members are curious about is where will the company be headquartered in Florida?
Oh, great question. As it happens, many of the board members and supporters of Patriot Select are in the Tampa-St. Pete area. State Senator Jeff Brandis and I have worked together for over a decade on various things, and we like to joke sometimes that he's a St. Pete native, and he wants St. Pete and Tampa to become the Silicon Valley of property insurance. And I think we're well on our way in terms of the talent pool that's in the Tampa-St. Pete area. The other Florida-based insurance carriers, and some of them are operating in many states now, but the ones that started in Florida to help solve the property insurance problem, many of them are based, not all, there are some great companies all over the state, but many are based in the Tampa-St. Pete area. So we feel like that's a great place to kind of set up shop and do business. So the company's headquarters physically will be in the St. Pete area for the near future. Many of our key partners and vendors and systems and personnel providers on a contract basis and stuff are also based in the St. Pete area. So we feel like that's a good place to kind of set up shop. And what's interesting is that's also kind of ground zero for the property insurance challenges, right? Whether it's hurricanes like Helene and Milton that both impacted the area last year. Outside of the homeowners insurance space, there's a lot of flooding risk, in the Tampa Bay area. So you look at sort of the greatest overall societal challenges with property insurance and other forms of insurance, and many of them are kind of ground zero in Tampa and St. Pete. So I can't really think of a better area to locate the company in.
Yeah, thanks, John. Another topic of discussion that we get a lot around here from our members is the financial stability ratings. So can you talk to us a little bit about where Patriot Select is in that process?
Great. Very good question. We intend to operate with a financial stability rating of A or exceptional from Demotech. It's funny, Joe Petrelli, the founder of Demotech, is an actuary as well. So, I have some professional kinship with Joe, and also his top people, Bob and Barry and others over there are either CPAs or, very, very experienced technical professionals. So, we are speaking nerd to nerd a little bit in terms of they're looking through the financials and the corporate finance of Patriot Select, and how we're going to grow our surplus to protect policyholders and also grow our reinsurance program. So when you start a Florida property insurance company, you've really got two forms of capital. One is surplus, or capital that you sort of put in the bank to protect policyholders during a severe season or a series of storms, for example. And then you have reinsurance capital. So you have to have not only the confidence of your investors, but the confidence of reinsurers who are, that is a very global market. So we will be, traveling to Bermuda and London and New York and other places to seek that storm coverage or that backup coverage for storm season very soon. And Demotech looks at all of that very closely. They look at your surplus capital, they look at your business plan and how fast you want to grow. They look at your ability to place reinsurance with the global markets sufficiently to not only cover the so-called big one, but in Florida, what's really hurt a lot of carriers is maybe not paying attention to the frequency of storms. So when you have, for example, in 2020, we had 5 severe weather events in Florida in the winter and spring. And then just when COVID hit and a lot of the carriers were kind of paying all those spring storm claims and scrambling to get ready, then we had the most active Atlantic hurricane season in history. We didn't have one big one. We didn't have a Cat 5 hitting Miami, but we had 5 hurricane impacts, or I should say tropical storm and hurricane impacts in Florida that year as well. And that really put a stress on a lot of carriers. So Demotech really takes kind of a 360 view of things in terms of your surplus capital, your business plan, but also your reinsurance planning on both a big one basis and a multi-storm or season coverage basis. We're having all those discussions with them right now. Current plan is to have that financial stability rating in place well before we actually select policies from Citizens, which selection day is April 24th at 10 a.m. Of course, we're all focused on that date and time. And then assumption day is June 17th. And we would certainly have the Demotech rating prior to the upload. And then we would be finalizing and penciling in all the names into our reinsurance contracts through the late April through June 1st period. And then we would hope to have all our reinsurance in place on June 1st so that we can not only take out the policies from Citizens, but launch our voluntary HO3 program, which Kelly and Caitlin will talk about. So the timeline and business plan is to work with Demotech. And so far, they've been a great partner and really understand Florida and understand, we have very much alignment on where we feel the pressure points are in the state and the ability to get a financial stability rating.
Well, yeah, thanks, John. And that's great comments, because over time, you're going to notice as you start appointing agents and you get into these, I'm sure these town hall meetings with agency members of ours, they're going to be asking you questions about reinsurance and some of the stuff, the CAT modeling, because agents are paying more and more attention to that because of certainly some of the challenges from previous years in our marketplace. So just be prepared that there's going to be a handful of insurance nerds like you, John, that want to get into the weeds about some of those topics. So good luck with that. But Kelly, John mentioned it. What policies are you going to begin to offer, not only through the takeout, but the voluntary business policy forms?
Well, to start, we're going to just offer an HO3 product and do a really good job of doing that. We've got 2 products. One is the takeout HO3, which is very similar to Citizens with some additional features to enhance that product. And then we also have a voluntary HO3 product that is more robust coverage and has the bells and whistles that you would expect from a more voluntary like product offering. And all of the details for those are on our website at patriotselect.com. There's the citizens coverage worksheet is out there, so you can see how we compare to Citizens. And then there's also the breakdown on the voluntary product. Then, after we get those up and running, we will be, considering other product offerings as we grow, depending upon, feedback from agents, other stakeholders. We are authorized for a couple other products that we'll look to launch in the future after we get good at what we're doing.
Okay. And speaking of launching and opening up, what is your appetite? What are agents can they expect your appetite to be for new business? And certainly, are you open in all 67 counties or territories, or how's that going to work?
Okay, so the only restriction, if you look at the voluntary product, the only restriction at launch is that we won't be writing in Monroe County, but all the other counties will be open. And we will be balancing our takeout book and where it's, geographically dispersed. And that's pretty apparent when you look at where a lot of the citizens' policies are. And we'll use predominantly, look at the voluntary product to fill in those other geographic areas. We will set at some point, once we get to meet our targets, we'll have capacity set, to ramp down. We'll also look at our voluntary product to see if we need to make any tweaks. We're going to do some market research once we get the takeout product launched to see if we need to tweak any of our rates between now and when we launch that voluntary product in June.
Okay.
Kelly, may I add something real quick there? I do think there's something unusual about the timing of Patriot Select's launch in that, look, we are very pleased to be launching and providing additional capacity to the Florida insurance market right into the teeth of a storm season. Launching in June is not probably the way you would draw it up. If you just wanted to maximize returns to investors, you would probably want to launch in December and kind of get your feet under you. But the need is there, and we want to meet the need. But launching in June does carry with it some special needs in terms of being really careful about the takeout. I mean, you're going to basically have to cut a big check for reinsurance the day you get that takeout or before. You're not going to be able to see what you got from Citizens and just sort of page through it and in a leisurely way try and figure out how to reinsure that 6 months from now for the next storm season. So we do have to be very, very precise in what we select. We're going to have to look at that takeout pool very closely. And of course, you don't know, the consumer gets a big vote in all this. And so you don't know who you're going to end up with until the near the assumption day itself. And we're going to have to tune our voluntary writings around that a little bit. And, Kelly mentioned Monroe County. That's the only county where we're going to have a specific restriction at launch. We will kind of tune our voluntary offering to try and balance our concentration around the coastline a little bit, because we don't have total control of, what kind of concentration we get when the Citizens takeout occurs. And as you know, there are many more Citizens policies in, say, Pinellas County than there are in Lee or Collier County, just because the market has functioned differently in those areas. So, we're going to have to keep a very close eye on that. I do want to say something about Monroe County as well, though. At Citizens, Kelly and I worked with Monroe County officials and groups for years and years. I love Monroe County. I love the people down there. When you launch in June, you've got to be a little bit careful, but we would look forward to providing capacity to the entire state, including Monroe, someday in the near future. It just can't be the day we launch. So we do want to be responsive to the needs and the capacity needs around the state, but give us a little bit of time, given that we're launching in the teeth of storm season.
That's fair, John. Certainly our members would appreciate those comments and certainly look forward to what capacity you can bring, not only to the state of Florida, but Monroe County, because they always feel, as you know, a little left out down there. So,
hey Dave, you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
This has been really good, and we've covered a number of topics, sort of all together. I do just, for the benefit of our members, want to make sure that everybody's totally clear. Kelly, you said, you're going to be talking to agents. Obviously, LSAs went out as a result of the timeline that you have to work within for the Citizens takeout that would happen on June 17th, I think you said. But while you may be talking to agents and dealing with LSAs and stuff like that, you're not open to write new business until June.
Correct.
And that new business and the appetite will be largely predicated on the information that you get back based on the assumption how many policies you get as a subsection of those that you have tagged and all of that sort of stuff. So just do I have all of that right for the benefit of our members? That I don't want our members to believe, okay, Patriot is launched, they're talking to agents, they're appointing agents, and I can go right. That's not quite where we are at this point, because much of this is predicated on your June takeout and what you get from what you've tagged.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. And, as you would imagine, because of the timeline for the June takeout, the big heavy lift is between now and April 24th when we need to upload.
Right.
So we're really focused on getting the LSAs in place right now. That's the big focus.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a pretty, you might know something about that, Kelly, a very specific
A little bit about
timeline that exists there for citizens takeouts.
Yes. The timeline is etched in my brain forever.
Since it's been mentioned here a few times, Kelly, let's talk about the LSA. We've had the opportunity at FAI to look at the limited servicing agreement. So I'm sure we're going to get questions about this after this broadcast and certainly through our blogs. But just want to reiterate that we have had the opportunity, Laura Pierce, our general counsel, and others have had the opportunity to look at that limited servicing agreement, and of course felt like it meets the needs of our member agencies.
Yes, and we have a pretty streamlined approach whereby the full appointment and the LSA are almost the same, with the exception of binding authority. So it's a pretty smooth process, and we have gotten feedback from a number of agents and have had a lot of review on this over the the timeline that we've had. So it's ready to go, and we feel like we've gotten the feedback to make it successful.
Okay.
Well, Kelly, thank you for the opportunity to, for us to be able to review that. It means a lot. We do, as Dave said, get a lot of questions from agents. They've come to expect, our review and sort of stamp of approval on those. And what you all gave us was great. The conversation, the dialogue was great. And just want to say thank you to you and your team for giving us that opportunity on the front end.
And now might be the right time to mention that the IMS program, of course, will be part of our strategy as well, and plugging those agents into our product, our sales and marketing team to support us as we roll out our products. That's more on the voluntary side, but yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that's obviously another thing that we've been talking about and having conversations with you all for months in anticipation of the launch. Providing that, obviously you all will have relationships with agents that you've done business with in the past. You will create new relationships through the takeout process. But your willingness to distribute through IMS will give the opportunity for some of our members to have access to the voluntary program. And that really matters to both FAI and our members. And so we appreciate it. And thanks for mentioning that here on the call.
Well, Kaylin, I'm going to bring you into the fold here and ask you a few questions. Kelly mentioned it. It's the appointment process is pretty streamlined, but can you kind of walk us through what that looks like for an agent, an independent agent, to be appointed either through the LSA or when the voluntary distribution channel becomes available?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. We are currently, this has been mentioned several times, focused on getting those LSAs inked. But while we're working through that process, we're soliciting appointments for voluntary agencies as well. That web form is up live on our website. We've got folks that are coming to us through email looking for access as well. So, I would encourage folks to go in, fill out the appointment application if you're interested in doing business with us. I'll tell you that we may not get to sit down and have a call with you on it until after we get past that 24th deadline. But, we're looking at June launch, and we're really focused on building partnerships with independent agents here in Florida.
Okay. And certainly another question that you will get and we get around here is the commission schedule for not only the takeout business, but eventually the voluntary business. So how can agents see that commission schedule online?
So it is not available online. I can tell you that the commission schedule for both takeout and voluntary is going to be richer than citizens. All of that commission information will come over in the written communication that you guys get from us.
Okay. All right. And then staying with that theme, what kind of training and resources would be available to agents that are now appointed with Patriot Select?
So as we onboard agents, we do have an agency portal that is functional, that's loaded up with, training documents. We'll be doing webinars. We'll be training agents in person as we get rolling. Expect us to come at you from many different angles.
Yeah, that's great. Certainly, if you can do some of those town halls around the state, you guys know that. You're all shaking your head. Those are very impactful, especially on a new entrant. To meet you guys, to talk through some things, to hear, as Kelly mentioned, getting some feedback from members about what they're seeing in their locales around the state, and hopefully that'll help develop some strategies for you guys in the voluntary market going forward. And last thing for you, Caitlin, is these agreements, are they going to come with minimum requirements for agents production-wise?
So that's not really going to be one size fits all. We know every agency is different. Agency footprints are different. Our production requirements, we're going to have them, but they're likely going to vary, by territory. So we'll have to get granular there and discuss that agency by agency.
Okay. Yeah. So more to come on that, right?
Yeah, and I do want to say we're really looking forward to showing up at FAIA. The convention is going to be a great opportunity. The timing of it couldn't be better for us. So looking forward to meeting a lot of the members there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something I hadn't quite pieced together yet, but yes, the timing of the takeout and y'all's voluntary market launch does coincide very closely with FAI convention.
Yes.
So I think all of you have been to our convention before, but I would just recommend that you bring throat lozenges and some comfortable shoes, because you're going to be answering a lot of questions and doing a lot of talking there at convention.
And Kyle, what are the dates for FAIA this year?
So
18th through the 20th of June.
So that's literally the day after takeout day. So what we may have a message completely set and practiced for all the agents, and then on the 18th we may rewrite the entire script based on how the takeout went. But
yeah, good news is the
intend...
exhibit. You guys are going to be with us in the exhibit hall. Exhibit hall, while the convention starts on the 18th, exhibit hall's open on the 19th and 20th. So you got like 24 hours to figure all that out.
I'm envisioning us sitting there cracking open the laptop, pounding away as we're talking to people, multitasking at its best.
Probably.
Yeah, we expect to be there in full force.
Look forward to seeing you.
Hey, a couple more questions before we bring this in for a landing. But Kelly, one of the questions we always get around here, and certainly is, how are you going to handle administration and claims and underwriting? Is that something you guys are going to handle internally, or are you outsourcing that with a vendor?
Well, we've really embraced the outsourcing model. So we have a lot of vendor contracts to provide the services that we need. We have great partnerships with a underwriting BPO that's providing our call center services, as well as our systems to process quotes and claims, admin, all of it. Then we have a TPA vendor that is handling our claims and some of our claims technology as well. They have a restoration service as well that we're providing for our customers to use. We have a managing general agency relationship that brings a lot of resources to the table, and also does some redundancy for us with business continuity being out of Texas. So we've got a lot of different contracts in place, and have been working that from start to finish, making sure that it all comes together. We've already got connected up with some of the comparative raters, and we're going to add more of that as we go. So I think we've got all the bases covered, but we know it's our job to manage the performance of all those vendors and making sure that our customers are getting great customer service, and that's what we're going to be focused on.
The one thing
Yeah.
all those vendors have in common is deep experience in
Right.
Florida property insurance operations. So many of these vendors, these key vendors, are actually local to the Tampa and St. Pete area as well. So, quite frankly, it's a little easier for service recovery and things if you can just kind of knock on their door and say, hey, then maybe this didn't go so well yesterday. Let's improve it for today. Let's do better today. So you have some of those relationships that are actually physically local, but others, even the ones that are not local, like Kelly mentioned, we've got redundancy in the TPA side and the MGA side with offices in Texas. Well, those things they may not be physically in Florida, but they're all deeply experienced and currently handling Florida operations, in some cases with other clients or in one way or another, they're ready to go in Florida on day one. We're not training anybody on the unique nature of the Florida insurance market.
Yeah, John, that's a great point because again, that's something that agents look to as they're creating partnerships with carriers. Where that back office is and what the support will be when they have a claim or when they have a cat event. So it's good information to provide during this interview today. And then last thing, John, I think you talked about it a little bit, but just your view, most agents that are going to be listening to this and viewing this, looking for a partnership, a long-term strategy with a carrier that can support them, on a long-term basis. So what is your outlook for Patriot Select?
Well, we intend to be a permanent fixture in the state of Florida, helping it become more resilient, whether to climate or to just increase population, and helping Florida grow responsibly. And Kyle has heard me say this before in speeches and so on. I drive race cars for a hobby, so I tend to think of the Florida economy as a big race car, and you've got the shiny wheels are like the tourism, and the humming engine is like agriculture, and the shiny paint might be the real estate market. Insurance is like the oil in the engine. You don't notice it until it's not there, and then the car doesn't go anywhere. It just seizes up. So, we've had that issue with property insurance over cycles now of a couple, 3 decades that we've both seen in Florida. We intend to be part of the answer in terms of smoothing out that cycle and being there for agents and their customers year after year. That's one reason why we're starting with an HO3 business plan. We're not going to try to do everything better than everyone. We're not going to try to do vacant dwellings and high-rise condo units and commercial residential and even within the property insurance space, there's a lot of those niches that we're just not going to launch in those niches and try to be everything to everybody. We are going to be a middle market, admitted market, homeowners carrier that agents can rely on. Yes, some of that is helping depopulate Citizens on day one, but over time, our business plan is not to be a quote takeout company. We do think the opportunity is there with Citizens right now. And frankly, Citizens needs a hand right now, depopulating. But once that cycle is complete, and we think it will be complete within another year or so, given the way things are going, if the legislature stands firm on its reforms, we think things are going to look a lot better at Citizens and that's better for the people of Florida in terms of assessment risk and things. But we also think that we're going to have to pivot and grow almost totally organically after this year. So we intend to be an HO3 company for the first couple of years, Citizens takeout in the first year, voluntary market really ramping up and accelerating after that. And we want to have a trusted population of agents that we just continue to deepen the relationships with year after year. Now, would we be opportunistic if a market need arises, whether it's condominiums or another adjacent line of insurance or dwellings or what have you? Sure, we're going to have our eyes open. We're going to be opportunistic as needed, but only in service of the vision of maintaining a stable, affordable, reliable property insurance market for independent agents. So that's our plan. We don't really have any plans to deviate from that in the next few years, and we're not going to dip our toe in and out. We're not, we're not in that sort of market. We're in an admitted market, middle market homeowners project with independent agents, and that's not a strategy where you can, simply be flighty. You have to be there year after year for that community, and that's what we intend to do.
Yeah, John, great comments, because that's certainly what independent agents are looking for is some stability and a long-term partner. So thanks for answering our questions. I'm going to turn it back to Kyle to kind of close us out of this interview. But thanks, guys, and again, congratulations and good luck. And look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. John, I think that sort of wrap up there that you just gave about Patriot Select's strategy and the partnership aspect with agents is what is most important to our members, and that is the long-term viable capacity provider to Florida. There are things that happen over time, whether it's cats or other things, that obviously businesses have to be nimble. You have to make changes, depending on, areas, territories, citizens takeout, concentration, all of those things. There are things that you have to manage. You have an incredible team that you have assembled that I feel very comfortable will be able to do those things. But more than anything, agents are looking for a long-term stable partner. And to hear you all talk about what your plans are, and let's be really good at this, and then we'll be opportunistic on other opportunities, is, I think, a great way to enter this space. And I think that's informed by you all's experience here in Florida. So thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think you guys covered all of the things that our members want to know and want to hear from a new entrant into the market. As I've said before, congratulations on the launch. We look forward to celebrating success with you guys, both at convention here in a couple of months and into the future, and give you the opportunity to share any last thoughts if you have anything more that maybe we didn't cover or you wanted to share with our members before we call it a day.
Not that I can think of.
No, I think it was a great conversation. I think
Yep.
we covered a lot of ground. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. Our members will really benefit from this conversation, and hopefully you all will too. We have a pretty large reach of folks that pay attention to the things that we put out, and hopefully this will give all of the information that agents need as they receive the emails regarding LSAs, and also, thoughts of, potentially writing voluntary business with you all. Again, good luck over the next couple of months with the takeout and the timeline that I know you guys will be very, very busy with. We are always here as a resource. If there's anything along the way that you all need from us, want to gather information about our members, what's going on in the market, happy to do it. But congratulations again and good luck.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kyle and Dave.